Good day, everybody. Zach Quartz here, Spurgeon Dunbar there. Thank you for listening to another episode of Highside, Lowside. First, though, a quick announcement. We have a live show coming to Southern California.
So we have secured the Frida Cinema in Santa Ana. Tickets are going to be $10 a piece. All proceeds go to charity. You can get your ticket at RevZilla.eventbrite.com. We are going to do a full recording of Highside, Lowside. All of your favorite hosts will be there. Zach, myself, Ari Henning, Brandon Wise, Jen Dunstan. We're also going to be debuting the newest CTXP episode on the big screen. This is the Wild Alaskan Adventure that Zach and Ari took earlier in the year. And I don't know what else there is to say. This sounds like it's going to be a pretty wild night, and hopefully you can join us.
$10 a ticket. All proceeds go to charity. Again, the big takeaway is RevZilla.eventbrite.com, and we do hope you'll join us. In the meantime, enjoy this non-live episode of Highside, Lowside.
Welcome back. I am Spurgeon. This is Zachary Quartz with me today, as always, and it is the final episode of Season 4 of Highside, Lowside. Zach, why don't you do the honors and let the audience know what's in store for them today?
If you made it this far, you survived another season of Highside, Lowside, which puts you in a very small and elite group of people, and we so appreciate you listening. It'll be the usual rigmarole to a certain extent. Today, everybody, we're going to give away a T-shirt, but we are not going to have so much of the housekeeping up front, because we're going to jump right in to talking to our very, very special guest, Miss Itchy Boots.
I'm excited about this one.
Is on the podcast.
Yeah.
It's very exciting. We've been crossing our fingers for this for a while. Our man Chase, producer Chase, has done a stellar job tracking her down and convincing her to talk to us for a little while. So hopefully we have a fun podcast in store.
If you have not seen any of her content, do yourself a favor. Just go ahead and just hit pause on the podcast. Go over and watch like the very first video on her YouTube channel. She does I think the one that was up there right now as we're recording this is like a synopsis of her trip across Africa. Her content is amazing, and I am sure that the conversation today is going to be nothing short of amazing as well. Not because of Zach and myself, but because of Noraly's contributions to the podcast. But before we get into all of that, let's get in a quick word from our sponsor, Motul.
Most of all, being the final episode of the season, we just need to thank Motul for supporting this whole program and allowing us to have fun and record this podcast. And as Spurgeon always says, a lot of time and effort goes into this, as unprofessional as it seems. So just a big sort of tip of the cap to Motul, and I guess, I don't know. What do we do for next year, Spurge? Do we know?
Well, I'm just crossing my fingers that Motul likes us as much as we like them, because I've, in addition to the fact that they've really played a huge role in helping us put on this podcast, they've played a huge role in making sure that I have oil in my motorcycle and a clean chain as well. So or you have products to clean up your massive oil spill in your garage, that kind of thing. Basically, we need Motul sponsorship for two reasons. One, Spurgeon needs lots of cleaning products because he's a mess of a mechanic. And number two, we have to pay producer Chase's massive salary, which is unreasonable
exorbitant
at times.
Well,
yeah.
I would say it's unreasonable, except he's the best in the biz. So I don't have any problems with it, to be honest.
But I just want to say, again, from Zachary, from myself, thank you to Motul for another season of support. Motul also went above and beyond this year with they sent out a bunch of chain cleaners and lubes to some of our listeners. They showed up at Get On Adventure Fest with cases of chain cleaners so that everybody could have a clean chain while riding in a muddy, wild off-road experience. And then also, I want to thank all of the listeners out there who wrote in. We had a bunch of really great comments of people saying like, hey, I went out and I bought Motul to support the podcast. My bike needed an oil change anyway, so I went out and I bought some Motul. We read those comments. Again, Zach and I do a good job of listening to and reading all the comments that come through. Speaking of which, Zach, I think it's time to give away a T-shirt from a listener review.
That's right. So you can get a free Highside Lowside T-shirt if you go to Apple Podcasts and leave a review of some kind. We comb through those. We pick one that we think is, worthy of T-shirtdom, and we send out at least one T-shirt every time we do a podcast. So the winner this time is not pronounceable. Sneehith9, SNE. Hith9. Not sure how to say that, but anyway, this person wrote in and said, really appreciate all the knowledge you guys share in the podcast. Being an immigrant, it really helps understanding of the rider terminology, riding culture, and phrases that are commonly used. Also loves the humor and humbleness. Not sure how well we do with that. But anyway, thank you so much to SNE Hith9. We like this comment. I like this comment in particular because sometimes people write in and they say, you guys are always like slinging names of bikes around, and like we try to step back and explain what we're talking about so that it's not too difficult to understand. But it sort of put some wind in our sails to hear that our banter and back and forth about motorcycles help this person understand riding culture in the United States a little bit better.
And I do want to say too, in addition to this comment, back to the fact that like there are a lot of comments that come through. I was actually perusing the YouTube comments for the episode with Lance Oliver where we talked about sport touring motorcycles, and there was a comment on there from, I want to say off the top of my head, his name was Lee, and Lee was like, "Hey, I wrote in an email and I didn't get my T-shirt. I can promise you that we have sent out T-shirts to anyone that's written in an email. So one, make sure you're sending your emails into highside, lowside at RevZilla.com. And two, if you haven't gotten a response, maybe something got messed up there, send us an email again. And again, just to make this as clear as possible, if you have us read a comment, SNEHITH9, it is now your turn to shoot us an email and say, hey, I'm Snihith9, not Snihith8 or 7, but I am number 9. And then we will make sure that you get a free T-shirt sent out to you. And again, Lee, on YouTube, episode 10 of season 4, I read your comment, and I am happy to send you a T-shirt. Just go ahead and send them over. Also, it's the holidays, people. Buy a Highside, Lowside T-shirt for your loved one. We are currently out of stock for mediums and larges. That should be addressed by the time this podcast goes out, though. So, right. Great stocking stuffer this year.
So buy a Highside, Lowside T-shirt for one of your larger loved ones.
Or smaller. We have smalls and we have extra large. We run the gauntlet, yeah.
And, of course, they won't have any idea what it is, but, they can use it to clean up messes in the kitchen or something. Okie doke. So normally we would pivot to the news, but in large part, we are going to skip, all the sort of newsworthy items or any newsworthy items that we'd have to talk about in the world of motorcycling because we want to jump in and talk to Itchy Boots as soon as we can. Just a couple little quick plugs for some work that our colleagues are doing.
Yeah, so we are going to actually come back with the start of season 5 with Zach and myself and Lance Oliver. We're going to bring them back, and we're gonna release the start of season 5 to actually hit on a lot of news altogether. So we're going to skip it today, but there's a lot of new bike announcements coming up. There is a lot of bike releases, so we are going to come and do one whole collective episode on what you should be considering for 2022. What we liked and didn't like about 2021. So make sure to tune in, subscribe to wherever you get your podcasts to make sure you do not miss any of the, high flow and action here on Highside, Lowside. But the only thing that I want to do, I want to give a call out to Jen Dunstan. So Jen Dunstan has been working tirelessly over the past 6 months to put together a Riders Alliance program for RevZilla. And really what this does is it goes out and finds riders like yourself in the community, and it shines a light on them. It brings them into, a circle of select people that, they have regular day jobs, but they're also committed to motorcycling in a way that they're going out and they're living the lifestyle. And really what Jen has done is created a group of 6 people that will be part of this Riders Alliance for RevZilla for this year. If you go to RevZilla.com/Riders-Alliance. You can check out all of the different people that are in the group for this coming year, and really exciting to see how this is going to grow and move forward. But just a big shout out to Jen and all the work that she's done putting this together.
Fine work. And second, perhaps last, just a quick shout out to our friend Ari and his YouTube show, The Shop Manual, which should have a new episode around the time this podcast comes out. I think a little before. It should be live now on tire age and can you still use tires if they are old, which I think is an awesome topic. It's super, like, people talk about this all the time. Oh, the date code on my tire's too old. I can't ride it. So he went to a racetrack with an old set of tires. I'm not going to give any more spoilers.
Don't give it away.
But it's,
Don't give it
no,
away.
I won't give it away. I won't give it away. But it's going to be a rad episode. And
I'm just excited.
please
So
check that
now
out.
every time that there's a comment on some video about like, my tires are a year and a half old, like I can't go to the track on these tires. We'll be able to be like, yes or no. I'm not gonna give it away, but like, here's Ari's video, and if Ari Henning can do this,
my gosh,
yeah,
exactly.
He used science to prove his point,
as he often does. Okie doke. That's enough of just the two of us, Jack Wagons, talking. Let's get Itchy Boots on here and start talking about her life on two wheels, shall we?
Let's do it. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Noraly, otherwise known as Itchy Boots on all of your favorite YouTube and social media platforms. Noraly, would you prefer us to call you Itchy Boots throughout the podcast, or are you okay with us using your first name?
Whatever you like.
Also, are we saying it correctly? Did he say it right?
Yeah, Noraly. Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay.
Your accent sounds better than mine.
Yeah,
though,
we can't do that. We're very uncultured in that respect. Well, we're so excited that you that Chase tracked you down and that you're joining us today. We're obviously we have a ton of questions for you. And what we often do with guests, especially first time guests to the podcast, is give them a little lightning round of questions to do with their motorcycling life, just in case any someone's been living under a rock and they don't know who you are and they don't know your history at all. So we're just going to jump into a handful of questions, if that's okay, to let the audience get to know you a little bit.
Why don't we start off with what accent is that?
Dutch.
Yeah, that's fair. Right.
Dutch. I am from the Netherlands.
There we go.
And can you settle this once and for all? Is there a difference between Holland and the Netherlands?
Not really. No.
Okay. I love it. I've heard people say like, oh no, it's like a region and like you don't understand, and then they explain it and I still don't understand. So I'm so gratified to hear you say, like a Dutch person say like, nah, whatever, who cares?
Yeah, okay, they are a little bit right, but usually that's people that from outside that particular region that say that. But I think all around the world people know it either as Holland or the Netherlands. I use both as well, so same.
Well, we are very grateful that you and all of the people in your country can speak English, because if we had to do this in Dutch, we would be completely screwed. So
I think that's actually a really good point, though. Like, I remember at one point when I was watching some of your videos, I'm like, this is really impressive that you're doing the whole thing in English. So for anyone out there that's listening, you can go and enjoy all of your videos, because it's definitely in a language that we all understand.
Right.
Right.
I try my best. I do sometimes say the most random things that don't make any sense, but
Can you give us an example? What's something you would say? Do you have like a go-to saying that's like nonsensical?
oh no, I have go-to sayings, but I think they are proper English. But no, it usually goes wrong when I try to translate a Dutch saying into English, and then somewhere through you're like, I don't think this is actually, you say that in English. But most of the time it's fine.
Right. Cool. Okay. Well, feel free to lay some of those on us if they come to mind. So first question is a pretty simple one. How did you get into motorcycles in the first place, and what was your first motorcycle?
Ooh. The first time I ever rode a motorcycle was probably about 10 years ago. And I was traveling in El Salvador at the time, in Central America. And I was with a friend that I also met there, and we met a random guy who had a dirt bike, and he was like, do you want to ride this? And my friend was like, yes. And I was like, I don't know, not for me. But because my friend was like, I really want to ride a motorcycle, I was like, okay. So that was the first time I ever really rode a bike. But then it took me another like 5 or 6 years before I finally got my license and really started riding. And that was mainly, I think, because my brother was really riding a lot at the time. So he also got me inspired. And then I got my license, and the same day I picked up my driver license, I bought a second-hand Ducati Monster 796. Right. So that was my first, not a very beginner bike, but first love. For sure.
So what was your brother riding?
He just last week he got a GS, a 1200. And we were just talking about it, but that's his 5th bike.
Oh, wow.
So so he has had a few, but I think at the time he was probably riding a Super Tenere.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So so I don't want to jump ahead too far, but are you?
Well, then don't.
Wow. That's hurtful. Are you and your brother are you and your brother planning any trips together? Have you thought about doing anything with him? It sounds like he rides an adventure bike, so any thoughts to do something with him?
Yeah, well, adventure bike, I mean, yeah, well, they say they are adventure bikes, but no, he's not an off-road rider.
So you're the adventurous one in your family then?
I think so, yeah.
Oh man, he's going to listen to this and he's going to call you out. Yeah.
I really I love that. I love that your brother had a Super Tenere and a BMW GS, and you're like, nah, I don't think he can keep up with me. That's excellent. So next question. When did you realize that making motorcycle videos was your goal? I mean, it kind of like, it wasn't always super intentional, right? So how did that come about?
Yeah, so about, what is it now, 3.5 years ago, I quit my job, I sold my house, sold my Ducati as well.
Yeah.
Still hurts a little bit. And my plan was, okay, so now I have a little bit of money from this, and I'm going to try and travel full time and make a living while doing so. And I started with blogging, so I started just writing.
Right.
And I was traveling as a backpacker until I kind of, by accident, rented a motorcycle and then bought a motorcycle and then thought, why am I traveling in a bus if I can travel on a motorbike? So that's how I kind of started with the motorcycle traveling. And then I realized that I wanted to film it because I thought, there's so many impressions that you can never really write clearly, and it's just so much nicer if you can show it in a video. So then I bought a GoPro and started a YouTube channel, and just went on from there.
So would you say it started with the traveling? I mean, it sounds like, talking to you and a lot of your history, like you've had a passion for traveling for quite a while. So was it more of like a traveling thing and then the motorcycling kind of complemented that? Was the traveling the first thing that kind of kicked it off for you?
Yeah, I've always been a traveler, and I've been traveling almost full time for the last 10 years. So before I did YouTube, I was also always traveling and working abroad and all sorts of things. So I was a traveler first, but when I discovered my love for motorcycles and then discovered that you can combine the two, I was like, this is it. This is it for me. So
it's peanut butter and jelly right here. Let's just make a sandwich and go. Yeah.
Exactly.
So out of all, I mean, I would say that, you've probably crammed more adventures and miles and locations into, the past 5 years than a lot of people, have in a lifetime. If you could recommend your number one motorcycle moment, like if someone's like, where do I have to go if I'm on a motorcycle, what would be your top pick out of everything that you've had to do so far?
Yeah, that's hard. I mean, on which continent are you? I mean, in like the Americas, the part of South America that I've seen, the Andes, like the mountain range, the Andes is just magnificent. Best mountain range I've seen. But then if you're in Asia, you get the Pamir Highway, and I've now done a little bit of Southern Africa, which is just, I don't know. I can't pick one.
Okay. Well, I think you gave us 3 good options there, because I think it's funny. We've talked about this before in the podcast, and Zach knows, but like South America is like top of my list of places that I've never traveled to, and South America is like, that's my bucket list of like places to go. So I'll put the little check marks next to the Andes mountain range.
Yeah.
So the next question we have is related to. It's sort of in the same vein. We did an episode a couple seasons ago on dream trips, and I guess our question we have for you is, what's a dream motorcycle journey for you? Someone who's done so many.
But it's one that you haven't done yet. So like,
exactly.
Like you've obviously, it's hard for us
Still
to
on
ask
your
you this
list.
question because you've been like, well, let me check off all these different places. But
I think that's why it's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I try to not dream so much about things, but just go and make it happen. So for now, I'm right in the middle still. So I'm still going and just kind of going wherever I want to go. But I think there's at least one country besides motorcycling that has been super high on my list for a really long time, just to see it, to travel it, and it's Japan. Yeah. And I think also on a motorcycle, it will be absolutely amazing. And it's just for overlanding, of course, it's a little bit hard to reach. It's a little bit far away. So it's just, it's never gotten to that point yet, but it's still super high, on my list, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough.
So I love the fact that you said that you don't like to dream, you like to make it happen. I think that's a great takeaway right there for everybody listening.
Certainly, yeah. I don't think that I don't think there's many people that would say that. Frankly, most people, if you ask them if they have a dream, they would say, "Oh yeah, I've got all this stuff I want to do." It's rare that someone says, "No, I just do all the things that I want to do. I don't really stop to think about it." So that's very, very, very impressive. And yeah, Japan. I can say. Did I actually haven't asked Spurgeon this either, but did either of you happen to see the James May, Our Man in Japan series that he did on Amazon, where he traveled through Japan?
No.
I thought it was pretty good. It's he travels from the very top of he travels from the north of Japan all the way down to the south, so he sees all the different regions and I don't know, food and sled dogs and boats, and it was interesting, and it definitely piqued my interest. It seems like a super, super interesting place.
I would also say, I was going to say, I know that you've had to give up certain motorcycles along your trip because you couldn't get them out of one country or into another country. So, maybe there's a way that you could just find a motorcycle in Japan where you don't have to worry about like overlanding there. You can just, fly in and spend some time riding around. Because I think it would be really interesting to see you explore, that country as unique as it is.
Definitely. Yeah, it's definitely an option. It's kind of the same what I did in my last season in Africa, that I flew there. I got a local motorcycle there and then traveled from there. The only problem what I do find with that is that it takes time to prepare your bike for adventure riding and get the right setup and get all your stuff that you want on the bike. And it easily takes me like a month to properly prepare a motorcycle for what I want to do with it. So that's kind of the only downside of that idea. So I would prefer to go there with my bike already set up. Yeah. But if that's not possible, then I'll just make it happen with another bike. Like that's just make it happen.
So can I know that Zach's dying to get to the last question so we can move on. But so the last question is going to tie into this. So Zach, why don't you ask the last question first, and then I've got a follow up at the end. So I'm gonna shut up.
That's fair. So the last question isn't to do with any dream travel or things that you want to do, but what you've been doing lately. Just in case anyone's not familiar with where you've been riding recently and what you've been up to recently.
So the last 7 months I've been riding in Southern Africa. So I started in South Africa and drove 3 months through South Africa, and then I crossed into Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, and then back to South Africa again. It was absolutely amazing. I couldn't go any further into West Africa. The borders are still closed mostly over there. Okay. And for East Africa, I needed different paperwork for the bike, so I couldn't. With that motorcycle, I couldn't go any further. But it was absolutely fantastic. And then I ended the season with entering the Kalahari Rally in South Africa, which was a 2,500 kilometer rally through the desert there, which was fantastic. So really, really good experience.
How many days was the rally itself?
It was 7 days. Oh, wow. So one super special, which was the time qualifier, and then 6 stages.
And that content is going live as we speak, right? All that stuff is going to your channel now.
Yeah.
Right.
It's all
Cool.
on the channel.
Yep.
Yeah.
And how? So that is, was that season 5? Do you break your stuff into like seasons? Correct?
Yeah, I try to group it a little bit so it's easier for people to watch a whole trip, kind of. So basically, one trip is kind of a season. I just call it season because it sounds cool.
Yeah. No, it's great. I like it. So how many days were you there total? Like how long was that trip for you?
7 months.
7 months. Wow.
Yeah.
So the question that I want to circle back to, that I wanted you to answer that first. So it looks like you've owned quite a few motorcycles. You were giving your brother props, but I think you've owned probably 5 motorcycles yourself, correct? In like the past, 5 or 6 years. Is that about right?
Yeah, it seems like I'm leaving motorcycles on different continents, left and right, which has never been the intention, of course. But that's just kind of how it evolved. So I got the first bike that I rode from India to the Netherlands. And then with the second bike, I wanted to ride from Patagonia to Alaska. But then I was in Peru when COVID hit, so I had to abandon that bike there. Which months later, I got it out of Peru and back to Europe. But then I was already in Europe, so I got another bike there, which I used to ride around Europe. And then I went to Africa, got a bike there. So it's never really been the intention to do it like this. But obviously, COVID kind of, messed up a lot of things. With that as well. So now I also have my bike in South Africa still that's now living in the motorcycle museum over there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
and that was a CRF 250, right?
Yeah, CRF 250L.
Okay.
It got me through the rally until the last stage. And then it's kind of, I broke the subframe of the bike. I did manage to ride out the rally, so other riders were so kind to stop, and they helped me to dismantle the whole thing. And we put pieces of the whole rear end of the bike, restrapped it on 4 different bikes. So 4 guys helped me. They all brought pieces of my bike, and we continued the rally, and I finished. So that was really great. But now she kind of looks like a cafe racer.
So wait, so I had watched an episode where you blew out like the front fork seals, right? So it sounds like you properly, destroyed this bike trying to make it through the rally.
Yeah, no, the fork seals. Yeah, that day I blew them twice in Africa. That was like over 22,000 kilometers.
Yeah.
So that was fine. And in the rally, the only thing that broke was the subframe.
It's a pretty integral part, though. It's you kind of need that there. Yeah.
Yeah, I blame it on, because I couldn't understand why that happened, because I thought months and months of abuse, nothing happens. I do this rally, but obviously in the rally, first of all, I pushed that little bike to the absolute max. But the problem was I had a fuel tank strapped on the back with, I'll spell it out in gallons for you, because that should make more sense to you. It was 2 gallons, I think.
Okay.
I think almost 7 liters.
I appreciate that, because like you're using kilometers. I'm sitting here. I'm like 22,000 kilometers. We're talking about I got to figure out that in miles. So 2 gallons of gasoline. That's good. So that's about 15 pounds of weight on the back of the bike.
Yeah, and somebody said that it's also because it's a fluid, that moves. I don't know. It brings out more stress fatigue on the frame or something like that. Yep. So that must have been the cause of it breaking. I can't see any other reason why. But so now that bike lives in the motorcycle museum. And
so what motorcycle museum is it in?
So there's a place in South Africa called Knysna, and it's a private collection from a guy who has like 300 or 400 bikes there. A lot like vintage, but also super new, and he has a whole huge collection. And they really wanted to display my bike there, and I thought it was great because I want to stay the owner. Like, I'm not really a fan of selling bikes. I did that once with my Ducati, and I was like, never again. So I want to stay owner, but I also needed a place, and I think it's quite nice. He's now there on display. So.
Sure. Yeah,
so unlike the average person that doesn't want to sell a bike and just has to get more garage space, you just have bikes all over the world, and you just have to find people to watch them for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it says something about how you ride your motorcycles that people say, "Can I put it in my museum, please?" I definitely have never. I've never been looking to get rid of a bike and had someone say that to me. So that's got to be pretty flattering.
I also like it, and I got some followers in South Africa, so it's also cool that they can go to the museum and check her out and let me know that she's still in good hands and stuff.
Right on. So it sounds like the plan is like a place to keep bikes, at least on every continent, where you can leave your machines to gather. And over many years, you'll have more and more bikes just sitting, waiting for you to come back and ride them. Yeah,
I mean, I like to ride bikes a little longer. It's not that I need a new bike every 6 months, of course, but it just kind of happened now.
I mean, it sounds like you're completely destroying a bike. It sounds like you do need a new bike every 6 months, or at least new subframes to replace.
Yeah, I mean, in my defense, that little 250, it was second hand, so it was already 7 years old, and the previous owner also put like the same mileage on it in 7 years that I did in 7 months. And the bike before that, a CB500X, I also bought it second hand. So that's kind of also my thing I keep telling myself. Although I have to admit, for my next season, I just purchased a brand new motorcycle. So
But you're not going to tell us what it is.
No, that's still a secret.
No.
Well, actually, that's pertinent to the conversation moving along, because as we told you, the sort of broad goal of this conversation with you is to sort of go back through a lot of the questions and topics that we covered on season 4 of Highside Lowside and have you address them,
Yes.
and talk through them. So. I guess without further ado, the first topic that we wanted to cover with you, which was it was the first episode of our season this year, was about sort of new bikes in general. And a basic question for you is, do you have bikes that you're excited about? Like, has any bike been released that you are particularly, without any spoilers for your purchase, any bikes in particular that you thought, wow, I'd really like to try that bike, or I'm really excited about it?
Well, there was one bike. Yeah, so I won't talk about my new bike.
Nor will we.
We're not going to mention it.
Awesome. But there was another bike that came out this year that I was actually pretty excited about when I saw I saw pictures of it at EICMA bike show. Mm-hmm. And that is that Norden 901 new adventure bike that came out. And when I first saw the first picture, I was like, wow, that bike looks so cool. I really liked how it looked and all of that. And there's a YouTube video where they did like a promotional YouTube video and stuff. But I have to say, after riding the 250, and I am leaning much more towards smaller capacity bikes. And just seeing that now, when it actually came out, then I was thinking, actually, it's not the bike for me, because for me, I find it too heavy, too big, too bulky. Yep. But if they would make like a 501, 401, I don't know if that's possible, then I'll be like, then I would like to try it. So that's just my little shout out to Husqvarna, that if they can make a smaller one, then I would like to try it. Yeah.
Right, but you like the Norden concept of like the way that it looks and like the sort of like travel adventure thing, but you just want a smaller version of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, fair enough.
So it's interesting because I think you and the majority of the internet agrees with you, and I feel like I'm on Lonely Island over here because I think that the Norden 901 does not look appealing at all to me. And I say that as I'm a huge fan of the KTM 890, and the problem that I have with the Norden is that it looks like the tower on it is just going to make it so top heavy. I don't know if you have them in Europe yet or not. We don't have them in America yet. But like as a huge fan of the KTM 890, and it's essentially the same bike, it's just that the Norden, is a different image and it looks prettier. The problem that I have is that it just looks like with all that extra weight up top, it's not going to be as easy to ride off road as the KTM product. So again, no one else agrees with me. Everybody's like, Spurgeon, you're wrong. The KTM looks like a giant pile of and that like the Norden looks actually really cool. So again, I think you're probably in the same vein as a lot of the folks out there on the internet.
I think you just need to come up with the numbers. Like, how much weight are we talking about?
I mean, the thing is, if you're riding it off road and you mean
how much does Spurgeon weigh? Good question.
No.
Wow. You know what? You never ask a gentleman how much he weighs, Noraly.
She said, let's talk numbers.
Man, oh man.
But I mean, you're talking about that it will make it top heavy. But I mean, do you know how much heavier?
I don't. Like I said, but we haven't seen it in person yet. But what I can tell you is that like if you're talking about 5 to 10 pounds up high, like that is going to really throw off the entire balance of the motorcycle. So from my experience, and I've ridden a couple of different adventure bikes now where like the gas tank is in different positions, and even with like lowering the center of gravity where the gas tank is makes a huge difference in the balance of the motorcycle. So if it's 5 or 10 pounds up top, that's going to have an adverse effect to how it handles, at least not having ridden it yet. I'm excited to ride it. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm interested to see how it plays out, but I probably am not as excited about it as the rest of the internet seems to be, aflutter with it.
Yeah, I'm excited in so much as it seems like, aside from your concerns about the top heaviness, Spurge, just a good-looking 890 KTM seems like a promising prospect because it's a great bike, a little tough to look at. So I'm on Noraly's side as well. Yeah. So the next question we wanted to ask you in that vein of to do with new bikes is we've heard a lot about and seen a lot of effects from sort of supply chain issues, global supply chain issues in the United States with like not being able to get bikes, not being able to get parts, and being someone who travels. You're in Europe, but you've obviously spent a lot of time in Southern Africa recently. And I guess we were just sort of curious: have you seen that as well in the places that you've been? And has it been a struggle? And I don't know, what are your reflections on that?
Yeah, I mean, well, when I was in South Africa, it was pretty impossible to get anything for my bike there. So now I'm back in the Netherlands preparing my new bike for season 6, and I thought, okay, I'm in Europe, it's gonna be fine. But no, it's terrible here as well. It's super hard to get parts, or to even get the motorcycle was not so easy. To get parts is almost impossible. So yeah, unfortunately, I'm really a little bit embarrassed to say, but I kind of have to start throwing around like, this is Noraly from Itchy Boots, the YouTube channel. I kind of have to pull all the cards I have because I have a very short period of time to get my bike ready. So I'm super pressed on time. So I can't wait a month for a part. So I'm just hoping that will open some doors, because often they do have like something still laying somewhere, whereas officially it's sold out. So that's kind of my strategy at the moment, to just use whatever I got to get the parts.
It's funny. That's exactly what Zach does when he goes to the grocery store. He's like, "Listen, I see that you're out of bananas, but like I'm Zach Quartz from RevZilla. Do you possibly have any more bananas in the back? Maybe special crate."
Actually, that's what I do. Except I say that I work for Itchy Boots, and I hope that works because no one would ever give Zach Quartz anything. So.
I mean, it's so terrible because you never want to be like, "Don't you know who I am?" type thing. Oh, that's just terrible. But I feel so desperate to try anything to get everything, all the parts that I want. But some things are like, for example, I was looking for a new aftermarket exhaust for my new bike, just for fun, seeing what was there on the market. And I found one really, really nice one. And then they were like, it will be in January that it's going to be here. I was like, oh, man. I can't wait for that.
Right.
I know. Has it been so? Like, I was talking to a friend that has a KTM dealership, and he was saying that the backlog. He's like, normally if they were at like $1 million of backlog order, they'd be freaking out, and they'd be like, we have to meet this demand, and apparently they're at like 10 times that, and they just can't meet the demand. And I think part of that speaks to the popularity of motorcycling has exploded in the last 18 months. I think part of it is supply chain, but part of it is that like so many people, when the pandemic started, were like, well, let's go for a motorcycle ride, or let's get into motorcycling because I can't go out and be with friends at restaurants or bars. So let's take this extra money we're saving and go buy a motorcycle and have a road trip. Are you seeing, is that a European
thing? And ride
thing?
for 22,000 kilometers across
Africa. Yeah, exactly.
Lots of people are doing that.
But have you seen the popularity of motorcycling kind of explode, whether it's in Europe or South Africa, or is it something where you just feel like it's always been popular there and this is just a supply chain issue?
No, I think in Europe we're having the same thing, and people don't want to take public transport anymore and be stuck in a bus with a lot of people. So I think also for commuting, it's just grown massively. And also, if you want to hang out with your friends and it's not allowed, but you can ride together in a group with motorcycles and helmets on, why not? So I think it's a very similar thing happening here in Europe. And then, besides that, I think a sea container costs 15,000 euros at the moment. It's like tenfold the price to get a container. So just shipping parts or bikes or everything is just so expensive now or I think that's also plays a role to, We had tried to get a bike shipped. We had done an adventure event over the summer,
and Jen Dunstan, our other media lead, was trying to get the bike sent from like South Dakota in the United States down to Los Angeles, and the guy was like, "Cool, like put your name on the list, and here's a 45-day window of when we might pick it up, and then there's another 45-day window after that where we might deliver it. So if you are trying to ship a motorcycle for like a specific event or timeline or trip, you're really working with these huge windows that, you know, you're almost at the mercy of when they can deliver things, and you don't even know when that's going to be. So I'm assuming that's probably had an effect on some of your planning as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, now that I want to start my new trip, new adventure, and it's not going to be one where I can just start riding from Europe. So I also have to ship my new bike again, and I'll have to go for air freight. So it's going to go on the plane, which is I've done it twice before on a plane, because shipping by boat, it just takes forever. I lose the bike for like 6 weeks, and I don't have that time. But also air freight is just, it's just so ridiculously expensive. I saw the quote and I was just like,
Is that when you pulled out the itchy boots and you're like, listen,
right, exactly.
I think I needed some space on your plane, and I don't know if you know who I am.
I should have done that. I didn't pull the card there, no. But I was thinking, wow, well, I can almost buy a new motorcycle for that amount. It's crazy. Yeah.
Well, I suppose that's in some ways that makes us feel better that that other people are
struggling too.
Well, other motorcycling communities around the world are having similar struggles, because that's what we've heard. But that's interesting perspective. So I'd like to keep it moving if that's okay with everybody. Episode 2 was all about passengers, motorcycle passengers, and I guess Spurgeon and I are curious, Noraly, about your experience either having someone on the back of your bike or being on the back of a bike. Do you have much experience with that?
Not much. Luckily, I've taken, I hardly ever take passengers usually because I don't have space, because there's luggage there.
Your subframe is broken, so you can't put them there.
My subframe is also broken, yes. By accident, but last week when I went to pick up my new motorcycle, I actually went pillion with a friend of mine who dropped me at the dealer so I could pick up my bike. Yep. So that was a first, that's very rare. I don't like it at all. I don't understand why you would want to be a pillion at all. And I even more so when it comes to, because I'm in the adventure travel scene, right, and long distance travel, and there are couples that do that 2 up and with all their luggage, and I just go to think, why would you do that? Why don't you want to ride yourself? Like you can't see anything because there's somebody in front of you. You're just like uncomfortable. I just can't see it. Like, just go ride yourself.
So do you think it's because?
Good answer.
Do you think it's because? So I'm gonna reserve what I think, but like, why is that for you? Like. Is it because you already know how to ride that you think it's less comfortable for you, or do you just don't like the experience? Like, what about it terrifies you, or what about it don't you like? Is it anything concrete?
Well, I think it turns out I think I'm quite a control freak then. Like, I like to be in control, and when you're a pillion, like you can't do anything. If you fall, you fall, and you can't save yourself or anything like that. But no, I think it's just a love for riding. I know how incredible it is to ride a motorcycle. So and being a pillion, that just doesn't come anywhere near that.
Yeah. So for me, it's the control freak thing. Like I've been on the back for a couple of different rides, and I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I'm just like, I don't necessarily trust the person, or even if I do trust them, like it doesn't feel the same as if you have your hand on the handlebars. Like I'm with you 100%. I know Zach actually spends more time probably as a passenger than anybody else on this podcast episode today. But I agree with you. I mean, you've been on the back as a passenger on a racetrack. You have your wife will take you on the back of your scooter sometimes, as you guys go out for like dinner. So I would say out of all of us, you probably have the most experience as a passenger.
That could be. I get a kick out of it from just because the experience is different. It sort of reminds me of when I was road racing, when I'd race, and then sometimes it would rain and you have to race in the rain. And for most people, they just hate that. They hate racing in the rain because there's less traction and you're more likely to fall down and you have to go slower, and it just like is worse. But one of the things I always loved about it was that you have to adjust your brain. You have to adjust your mindset and the way that you take on the racing. Like the way you control the bike is different. Sometimes the line through the corner is different. Where you shift is different. Where you brake is different. Those adjustments, I really enjoyed trying to make those adjustments and go as fast as I could. And I think it's sort of the same with a passenger. Like you have to, whether you have a passenger on the back or you are the passenger, it always offers me some perspective. And I think like, oh, this is what it feels like when someone is on the back of my bike, and I kind of understand that a little bit better. And I like thinking about that because I don't know, I guess I just get a kick out of that. But I can completely understand the point of view of just wanting to be, I mean, even when I ride on the back with someone that I trust more than any other person, like Ari, I know he's a good rider. I've ridden with him my whole life. I trust him. And even when I'm on the back with him, I think like, that's not quite what I would have done, or like, I'm not sure about that, So I totally understand the control freak thing. I think that's natural for motorcycle riders because that's why we like riding, right? Is to control the machine.
Yeah,
so.
I would say I probably disagree with you a little bit on that one, in the fact that like everything you said about like riding in the rain, right? Like, and Noraly, maybe for you it's the same way. If like you're riding in the rain on an adventure, like if I'm out on my 1090 or my 350 and it's a muddy, rainy day, I love the adjusting and the how am I going to get through this, and like the bike's going to slide in a different way, and you are thinking about it in a different way. So Zach, I agree with you on that. Don't feel the same way about being a passenger. I'm just like, no, this is not a challenge I want. I don't want to think about this differently. I just want this person to get off the front and let me ride the bike.
But I think it's also a matter that a lot of bikes are actually, it's not really built for it. Because I ride smaller capacity bikes, and
right.
I've had so many people ask me, like, the bike that I was riding at the moment, like, what do you think? I want to travel with my partner 2 up. What do you think? Is it a good idea? And I'm just thinking no, because if you look at actually like the weight that this bike is meant for, with 2 people plus luggage, like it's just not made for that, for that type of weight that you're carrying, because that's pretty much 3 people if you bring all your luggage as well. And it's just not built for that. So, I mean, the bigger bikes, you can do it more easily. Like, if you have a big GS, I think you can travel
right.
2 up with luggage. But the smaller bikes, besides that, it's just super uncomfortable. It's just not really designed to do that type of stuff, I think, for 2 people plus a whole lot of extra stuff.
So
yeah.
would your advice
great advice.
I would say would your advice then be, just so I'm clear, you would say that for passengers they should consider learning how to ride and maybe getting a small motorcycle and taking 2 bikes in the trip versus doing 2 bikes and two people in one bike.
I mean, I think it really depends on the type of riding you want to do. So if you want to do touring on tarmac, you can do it maybe with a mid-capacity bike, maybe. But I would still say, okay, then just go for that big GS, sit comfortably, bring all your stuff, no problem. But if you want to do adventure riding, 2 up with luggage, I think it's just gonna be miserable. That's what I think. I mean, obviously I've never done it, so maybe my whole opinion is not very valid. But then I would just say, just take both. Take a smaller bike and just enjoy it and ride off-road the way it's supposed to be.
When we were doing this Get on Adventure Fest here out in South Dakota, and it was this awesome like off-road adventure experience that we hosted, and it was like 3 days. And one of the days, Sean Thomas, who is an ambassador for BMW motorcycles, rode, and he rode with a passenger on his back the whole time, and he was on a GS 1250. And I can promise you, it was not any more fun on a big bike. Like, I'm watching him do this, and I'm like, nope, no way. Like, we're going through, like, these crazy uphills and, like, these rocky, and I'm just like, I'm having fun doing it by myself, but it's still a challenge. And then to throw somebody else in the back, it's like, no, I don't think that looks enjoyable. So I agree with you.
Yeah. Well, that's I think I like that advice from your perspective, Noraly. Someone's like, oh, passenger, especially in the context of traveling on a bike, and your advice is just don't do it. Either learn how to ride yourself or leave that person behind or whatever. I like it.
So let's move on. Let's move on to this is from episode 3 of this past season, and the titling of the episode was "Motorcycling is Dangerous." So you've obviously ridden, in a lot of foreign countries where you might not speak the language, or you might, have, issues of currency or border crossings. Like I said, before we started filming, there was a scene in your trip in Africa where like there wasn't somebody at the border crossing, and you kind of just rode through the stop sign, and like I was like, oh my God, what's gonna happen? Has any legitimately, like I've done enough border crossings in foreign countries to know that you don't just blow through the stop sign.
Itchy Boots doesn't care about gates.
Well, she's just like, Itchy Boots, it's okay. And they're like, oh, it's just Noraly, let her go. But have you ever had any experiences where you did feel like maybe this is sketchy, maybe this is going to be dangerous for me, like at all?
Yeah, definitely. But it's more, I think, with different types of danger. For me, the danger is mostly in, for example, very unexpected bad weather, that you get yourself into like a terrible like thunderstorm without shelter. Or when I was riding in Bolivia, there was such heavy rainfall that there was this like mud, how would you say that?
Mudslides? Mudslides, yeah.
River, whatever, like this brown river with
river
stuff in it. Yeah. And that I had to drive through. That was terrifying. But I think what helps is that when I always travel on roads that I don't know. I don't travel the same road twice normally. And I think that's good because that keeps you very alert. Whereas I think a lot of riders, if you always travel like kind of, if you ride in your area, you have your little route that you like to ride and you know the corners, you know everything, in a way that makes it sound maybe that it's safer, but I think you get too comfortable and you don't really pay so much attention anymore. Whereas I never know what's around the next corner. I never know really where I am or where I'm going. So that will keep you more alert, I think, and just also keeps your speed down a little bit. And but that is actually not really the answer to your question, is it now?
No, I think it's exactly the answer to the question. I think there's a lot of different ways you could take this because, I don't know what it's like for you per se, but I know there's times where when I'm, going out on a trip, I'll have friends or family be like, "Oh, are you sure that's safe?" Like I went to Mexico or Morocco, and they're like, "Are you sure that you're going to be safe down there?" And like I've felt safer in foreign countries than I have in America at times. There's times where I've been in America where I'm like, this might be a sketchy situation. So how do you react? Like, do your friends and family ever get worried about you, or they just are like, oh, you're just going to go out and do your next thing and you're going to be fine?
Yeah, I think my family, my friends, they're so used to me traveling all the time alone. And I think they just know that I'm experienced and they're just like, you got this, But I think it's more followers on YouTube, for example. They tend to get more worried about me. And it's just, it doesn't really matter where I am. Like when I was in the Middle East, when I drove through Iran and all the stunts, people were like, this is so dangerous and be careful. And then I went to South America and people were like, oh, but now it's really dangerous, And then I went to Africa and they're like, oh, but now you've entered the most dangerous country. And I'm just, I always think like, I don't go to countries where there's an active war or where there's like terrorist activity or other like really, bad stuff going on. But countries which are in peace and where there's nothing really major going on, I'll be fine.
You're lucky. I feel like I could be going to like Arizona and my mom will be like, are you going to be okay? I mean, it's a far way to go. And I'm like, calm down, Mom. It's going to be fine. It's Arizona. That's where Spencer Robert is from. So, yeah.
So I guess the last little question that I have for you about the dangers of motorcycling in general is when you talk to people, not so much you traveling by yourself around the world, but actually just riding a motorcycle, which everyone sort of agrees is more dangerous than, say, driving a car. And I don't, whether it's YouTube followers or whether it's just people that you meet who are not motorcycle people, or they don't know you. If someone says, "Oh, like riding a motorcycle, that seems really dangerous," what do you usually say?
Yeah, they don't really say that to me, but
No one says that to you.
Maybe that's
You're
an
hanging
American
out with the
thing,
right
though.
people, I guess.
No,
yeah.
but like maybe that's an American thing, and I
Yeah,
think
it could be.
that's a really good answer to that question, because oftentimes I am constantly inundated when people find out that, like, one, I ride motorcycles, or two, I work for a motorcycle company. They're like, how could you do that? Like, that's not safe. Like, that's really dangerous. Like, do you have a death wish? Like, I forget who I was talking to the other day, and they're like going off about how, like, they have a relative that is a nurse in the ICU, and, like, let me tell you all the horror stories. I'm like, yeah, I get it.
Right.
But maybe that's a thing where, because motorcycling is much more accepted, worldwide than it is in the U.S. Like, that's a really interesting perspective.
yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, it's when you speak to ICU nurses, then then you get that, I guess. But I think for the most part, it's about how you ride. And I do think you can always be unlucky, of course. But I think if you ride not like a total idiot, and if you just wear your safety gear, you wear your helmet, you just wear that gear all the time, I think you have a pretty good shot of staying out of that ICU.
No, I agree with you. And again, like I said, I really liked your answer to that question. I want to, let's keep things moving. So, episode 4, we had a bunch of conversations around, like, motorcycling events and different, things that happen around the world. So one of the questions we wanted to throw your way was, what's the best motorcycle event? Whether it's, a rally or a show or something that you participate in or something you went as a spectator. What was the favorite motorcycle event or show that you've ever attended?
Well, I haven't attended so many events, to be honest. But of course, the Kalahari Rally for me was the absolute highlight. I still get so super excited about it when I talk about it now, and I just immediately get back into that vibe. I just lived on some sort of high for a week there. It was just magnificent. But there was actually one other event that I attended here in the Netherlands, which is called Rotterdam Dirt Ride, and which was actually a lot of fun. I just went there randomly, and basically it's kind of an off-road event. So you have like flat track tracks. Two different tracks, and basically the idea is to bring the most unsuitable bike, wear the most crazy weird outfit or like some sort of suit or whatever over your gear, and just play in the mud. And it's just hilarious and so much fun, because in the beginning I thought, I don't want to go and ride, because what if everybody's really good and I'm the only one like falling down the whole time? But then everybody's covered in mud and sliding and slipping, and yeah, it was really, really fun.
And you said that's called the Rotterdam Dirt Ride?
Rotterdam Dirt Ride, yeah.
What's the one in Southern California that's like that, Zach? Do you remember?
The Halloween Hill Climb, maybe. Is that what you're thinking of?
No, there's one that there was like a flat track thing that they do somewhere in Southern California, and they all dress up in outfits and like.
Right.
But yeah, I can't think of the name of it. But it sounds like something similar we have in America, and I'm sure it was a good time. So going back to the rally in South Africa, one of the things that you had said earlier was that you don't like to ride the same road twice. However, it also sounds like you really enjoyed that particular rally. Would you ever go and do it again? Or would you say no?
Yes.
Oh, you would? Okay.
No, it was the first time I entered the rally, because I wanted to see if that's something that I would like to do. And I think already on day one, I was like, yes. When can I do the next rally? I think rally riding is a little bit of an expensive hobby, so going from rally to rally is not really an option. But I just wanted. Well, my conclusion was I entered the rally in the adventure raid category, so that's obviously. It's not with a road book, you just have a GPS, and it's kind of like the beginners, newbie type category where you can just kind of get a feel of rallying. But yeah, my conclusion was next year I want to enter, but then as a proper competitor with road book navigation and the whole shebang and everything around it. So yeah, yes.
Okay. No, I love it.
Right on. So I think we'll put that rally on our list.
I'm already like making notes over here. I'm
very excited to ask you the next question in our list, which which is in relation to an episode we did on the Guinness Book of World Records, and specifically motorcycle world records. And we had a whole discussion about.
Wait 1 second.
Oh, Spurgeon has something he'd like
no,
to say.
No. I'm going to let Zach build a cliffhanger here. So Zach has something he really wants to ask you. So we're going to get to that in 60 seconds. Let's get in a word from our sponsor, Motul, and we will be right back with Noraly. All right. So sorry about that. I know we've been anticipating over the last 60 seconds what Zach's about to ask, so I'm going to shut up now, and Zach, take it away.
So as I said, we did an episode on Guinness Book of World Records and all the motorcycle records, and perhaps one day you'll be in that record book, Noraly. Who's to say? No pressure. Just if it happens, it happens. And I guess one of the things that we talked about that I thought was kind of fun was if we felt like we could beat. We looked up all these records and we felt like we could beat some of them. So we had these picks of like, someone like rode on a trike, like a 3-wheeled vehicle, but like up on 2 wheels for the longest distance, and we were sort of like, I don't know, I feel like I could probably beat that record. So our question to you is, if you were going to set a world record, what do you think it would be? What do you think it would be for, or what would you shoot for?
I think it would be something related to endurance, I think, like longest distance or something like that, because I'm not really a stunt rider, so I can't really do like crazy stuff. But I think I would just start aiming for records only when I'm really starting to run out of ideas. Like when I'm like done riding around, I'm like, what am I going to do with my life now?
That's a great answer.
But I think for now, I still have plenty of other stuff to do to worry about records. Yeah.
Most motorcycles in museums with broken subframes. I think
there you go.
I'm off to a great start.
You're off to a great start.
Or maybe
Agreed.
just most motorcycles in different continents. Like maybe you'll just have the most motorcycles that you own in different places.
Yeah, true. So that's a great answer, and I think we can move right along from there. This next question, I'm also very excited to get your take on. We had a whole episode on motorcycles in movies, so sort of like famous motorcycle scenes from movies, or even motorcycle documentaries or anything like that. Do you have any favorites? Do you have a favorite motorcycle scene from any movie, or a favorite motorcycle movie of any kind?
Yeah, I can't. I saw that episode when you were talking about Indiana Jones and all of that stuff. I don't really know a particular scene, but I definitely know my favorite motorcycle movie, which I watched not long ago, and that's Into the Dust 4. I don't know if you've seen it.
Into the Dust 4?
I've never seen that. I've never seen Into the Dust 1, 2, or 3 either. So.
I mean, Into the Dust 4 makes Into the Dust 2 look like Into the Dust 3, if you know what I mean.
Yes, but I've also not seen Into the Dust 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, I see.
But you can just watch 4 because that's the best one anyway, I think, or as I understood. And I have watched that movie. I was absolutely glued to the screen, and I felt, wow, it's amazing. And it's really good from a filmmaking side, which I appreciate a lot, but just the whole story, it's absolutely amazing. It's about a father and a son who ride the Baja 1000. So you probably know that.
Our producer Chase is actually showing me. He's pulled up the movie and he's showing me like. So I'm trying to listen to the conversation. Like he's holding up the screen with like the movie playing at the same time. It looks really cool.
I can totally recommend this movie, and I don't know. I got all philosophical after that movie. When I watched it, I was like, yes, this is what life is about. It's about setting a goal and then working towards that goal and then pushing through the challenges and then actually make it to the finish line. And I got all thinking like, too many people, their lives just kind of go on and days blend into each other and they're just living for the weekend or something. I was like, that's such a waste, like every day you must live. And that's kind of how I was like after that movie. And I just I don't know, I have so much respect for somebody who works towards this and then does this most challenging race and just gets through that. And I thought it was really, really inspirational.
Those are the best movies, right? Like the ones where you leave and you're like, I'm going to go be a better human being. Like I'm going to live my life differently.
Yeah. Also,
Exactly.
I think the reason we were excited to ask you this question, and I'm sure the reason the people watching and listening to this conversation will be so interested to get your take on it, is that if you have inspired so many people, if you Itchy Boots were inspired by a movie, then it must be pretty powerful and interesting. So
yeah, definitely.
That's a great recommendation.
Go watch it. It's on YouTube. So.
And it's you said
Cool.
Into the Dust 4.
Into the Dust 4.
So I wonder if this is going to be.
You cannot be. To be clear, Itchy Boots cannot make any recommendations for Into the Dust 1, 2, or 3. Only for 4.
I said, I wonder if this is going to be like
fair.
Star Wars fans. You know how like Star Wars, because like I'm always like, people are like, oh, so you watch Star Wars? I'm like, well, I saw the one where Harrison Ford dies, like, but that was like 2000. And they're like, oh my God, you've not watched the original ones from the 70s. And I wonder if this is going to be.
How can you not? How did you not watch those?
See, you're one of them. You're one of the Star Wars people. Yeah. But like, I wonder if we're going to get all these comments from like Into the Dust fans that are like, I can't believe that she hasn't watched 1, 2, or 3 yet.
We'll see. So are you just quick sidebar? Are you a Star Wars fan?
Of course I am.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
Do you have a favorite movie?
No, well, yeah, the
Or a
earlier
favorite
ones.
character?
The earlier ones.
The earlier ones. Okay,
yeah,
sure.
Yeah. But
But
Star Trek is not. I don't like Star Trek. That's very, very bad.
Well,
very
now
bad.
you're just offending all the Trekkies out there. Like, we have an entire subculture of people that are going to be like, I'm writing her off my Christmas list this year.
Unsubscribe.
Fair enough. Well, that's an exciting development, the Star Wars thing. Hopefully, we'll get a chance to talk about that another time. But we're surely not going to bore everyone about that
I do
right
want
now.
to say that like I'm going to watch that movie. Like between you talking about the inspiration and like Chase showing me the clip, like that's the kind of stuff that I really do gravitate towards. Where it's like we have this goal, we're going to go do this race, and I'm assuming they did a very good job of filming it based on what I just saw there. So thank you for the recommendation. I think that it's something that
You're
a
welcome.
lot of our listeners can put on the list and check it out.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Because I think like that movie, besides motorcycles, it doesn't really matter. You can apply the whole principle to anything. Just working towards something. So I don't know. You can also apply it to I'm going to learn a new language, and every day I'm going to practice this and become better at it, or something like that. That was kind of what I got from it. To just set a goal for yourself and just every day work towards it, whatever that goal may be.
Right on.
I know that I said we need to move it along here, but I just have a quick question because it came up. How many languages do you speak? Speaking of learning new languages.
Yeah, I had like 7 at school or high school.
That's amazing.
7 in high school?
Amazing.
Yeah.
I had 1 in high school and I don't remember any of it.
I had one in
So
high school, and I was so bad at it, I switched to sign language class because I thought that would be easier. Like, yeah.
So,
Do you get sign? You can get sign language. At
We can do
school?
American Sign Language as a class, which I learned the
That
hard
is
way
cool.
that you can't sleep through American Sign Language class because it's a pretty visual medium. So that was not my
that's
best.
tough.
That was not my best moment in high school.
So would you say that you speak 7 languages now?
No, not fluent. No, not at all.
Okay.
But it does help, to pick up languages quicker, I think. Yeah.
Sure. I noticed in one of your videos in South Africa that you were speaking to, you were with a guide or a guy on a motorcycle, and you were speaking were you speaking Dutch with him?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they in South Africa and also in Namibia, Botswana, there's still a lot of people that speak Afrikaans, and
Right.
Afrikaans that originates from Dutch. So I was
Right.
just speaking Dutch and he was speaking Afrikaans, but we could understand each other. Yeah.
Oh, really? I didn't realize. I knew that the derivation was from Dutch, but I didn't realize that it was so close that you could speak the.
Yeah. That was actually
interesting.
That was,
Okay.
Yeah, it was really, really, really cool for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, right on. Okay.
I feel
All right,
I feel like a real underachiever now, though. Like I'm definitely. I'm definitely feeling pretty bad about that one because that's 7
Yeah,
languages in
certainly.
high school is amazing.
It's hard to even wrap my head around.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next question, the next topic, we had an episode where we talked about motorcycles for different size people, large or small. And I guess the way we wanted to put that to you was, it sounds like you said you gravitate toward bikes of smaller displacement, smaller capacity bikes. But I'm curious if someone says, what kind of bike should I get? How do you answer that? Do you have like a go-to bike that you always recommend, or do you feel like it's super important to know how big the person is or that kind of thing?
Yeah, I get that question a lot, that people ask me, what bike should I get? Or like,
Right.
should I get this bike or that bike? But I can never answer that because if there would be one bike which is perfect for everybody, there would be one bike at the market. So the fact that there's so much choice is just because we're all different people and we like different things, and different things matter or are more important to different people. So I can never answer this question for anybody, and I always say just test ride it. Go and ride it and see if you like it, and just buy it and go ride.
Brilliant. I love that answer. Yeah. I get this question all the time, and people, they say like, oh, should I get the whatever, should I get the KTM 690 something, or should I get the Yamaha something? And I'm like, I don't know you. I don't know how tall you are. I don't know how many years experience you have. I don't know what kind of riding you're going to do. I don't know what you like. Like literally, if you just like the color blue, get the Yamaha. You'll probably think it's really fun. It's not a bad bike. You'll be fine.
Exactly. But I also think like people, you have, each and every one of us has like, I think it's kind of evolution through which you go. So a bike that you like in the beginning when you're a beginner rider, that might not be the bike when you're a more advanced rider. You might want something different, or when you start to begin with off-roading, then you want a different bike than when you have years of off-roading experience, So I think you must also allow yourself for just starting somewhere, and then you can always change to another bike when you reach that type of level that you can actually ride the bike. Because I think also on the rally, I was the only one crazy enough to do it on a 250cc motorcycle. Like all the other bikes were much bigger and faster and everything. But then I also realized it's so much more fun to ride a slow bike fast than a fast bike slow. So if you don't actually have the skills, or you can't actually ride that big bike to what it's built for and to its capacity, then what are you doing on that bike? It's something a little bit smaller.
And you can just keep bikes. Like apparently you can just keep them all over the world. You don't actually have to sell them off. So you can just have, as you grow, you just have these little bikes all over the place. But I will say that like, I think I probably take a different approach than what the two of you are talking about. Because I think what you just said right there about, what I learned along the way was that it's a lot more fun to ride a small bike fast than one of these big, tall, heavy bikes that can be intimidating. I think for a lot of riders, just that basic insight is something that they might not have. So whether it's Zach or you or myself, when someone comes and says, hey, what do you think about this bike for me? I don't think that they're necessarily asking because they can't go take a test ride or they can't go sit on it. I think sometimes they're just looking for somebody to validate their decision, or for somebody to like talk them out of something or talk them into something. And it might just be as simple as like, honestly, I think that bike would be too big even for me. I had someone send a message the other day, and for the life of me, I'm forgetting what bike it was. They sent me a message on Instagram, and I was like, I think that's too big. Like I'm 6'3" and I wouldn't ride that bike. And they're like, interesting. and for me, sometimes it's just letting them know that they don't have to feel like they have to get something big and powerful, that they can probably have just as much fun, like you said, on a 250 or a 450 or something a little bit smaller.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, of course, it's a little bit different because both of you are quite tall, big guys.
See, you're going to call us big again. This is the second time in this conversation where you mentioned my size. Oh, my Lord. This is going to be a big questioning point as to whether or not we bring you back again.
You brought it up. You brought it up, man.
That's true. We did. Anyway, continue. So you're saying that we're taller, so it's easy for us to choose, basically. Is that where you're going with that?
Well, I mean, not if you want to ride Ducatis. Like when you talk about just brands, like a Ducati is like built for me, And
how tall are you?
Or you probably want to know it in feet and in inches and.
Well, you can give us in centimeters, and I'll do the math.
Yeah, we can do the math.
Yeah. I'm 168.
168 centimeters.
Yeah, so that's 5 something, but like in the adventure scene, that's
5
so much.
5'5". You are 5'5".
5'5".
5'6", I think.
So when you go to like for road bikes,
5'6".
That's fine. But for adventure bikes or dirt bikes, they're all super tall. And I would just wish that I would have a little bit of like your size, so I could ride just any tall bike easily. So yeah,
right.
In that sense, I'm a little bit jealous.
I would say,
That's
in
fair.
fairness, the flip side of that is that there are times where like I saw a picture of myself on my KTM 1090 the other day, and I was like, oh my God, I make that bike look so small. And there's times where like I feel like I would love to be on a 390 Adventure R for something because it's still lighter and more easy to get around, but it's not necessarily as comfortable to ride if you're spending 300 miles a day riding. Then all of a sudden you are a little bit more cramped up. Again, I think the flip side is true where now that you're a bigger individual, there's almost like, well, I have to get something that fits me from a size perspective, but now it's heavier, it's faster, and maybe I'm a little bit more intimidated by it. Zach's not intimidated by anything, so he doesn't understand what that's like. But.
That's not true, of course. Well, the next question we wanted to ask you is related to this, and it's maybe kind of a difficult concept or like a little bit of a weird question. But we did an episode where we basically built a bike like out of parts of other bikes that we liked, so it's like, oh, well, I like the engine from this bike, but I like the way this bike handles and I like the way this bike looks. So like in a magic world where I could wave a wand and have all those things, and I would put all those things together. So do you have like a dream bike in your mind where you're like, oh, I would have the engine from this bike and the frame from this bike, presumably not the subframe from a CRF 250L because it's not strong enough for you, but anything like that? Like do you have a dream bike in your head?
Ooh. I mean, it surely would need to have a Ducati sound. So I would want to have the sound from my Ducati Monster 796 with double Akrapovic exhaust.
Nice.
Aftermarket, very nice. And it also did not have. It also didn't have the damping, the DB killer. It didn't have that either.
Right.
So it has a very nice sound. But then, of course, now I cannot do without a 21-inch front wheel.
Right.
Spoked, so that also needs to have it. And engine, it needs to be 4-stroke. I don't like 2-strokes. And
what do you have against 2-strokes? Why don't you like 2-strokes?
They just rip my arms out. I can't ride that. Like, it's just so aggressive on the throttle and the sound. Well, okay, I got the sound from my Ducati, of course, but
right.
No, it's just not for me. So it needs to be 4-stroke.
Okay. Well, I say you just take that whole engine then. In this magic motorcycle, you just maybe take the whole Ducati, the 796 engine. It like for your dream bike. Would that work?
But I need single cylinder.
Oh, you need to be a single. But it has to sound like a twin.
What if we shrunk it down? Like, what if we went with like, what's the Aprilia? The Aprilia had that little dirt bike,
the SXV.
The SXV with it was a 500cc miniature V twin, which would give you the Ducati sound, but it would have like the performance of a single cylinder from a weight standpoint. Oh, we can do this. We can build this bike. I think we can do it. Yeah.
No, that sounds good. Yeah, because it also needs to be mid-capacity, so not too big of an engine either. So,
right. Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
So let me ask you this. So this gets back to a question that I had earlier that I waited to ask. So you had picked up a CB500X, correct? And you got that in Europe. Was the reason you didn't take that to Africa because it was just too hard to get it into Africa, or did you want to do that trip on your 250?
No, it was just the whole shipping and then so many borders. Like this was last February when I went. So everything was uncertain about borders, closing, countries open and closing. And because I already got stuck with my bike in South America, in Peru, before with my bike with Dutch license plate, registered on my own name and stuff. I was like, I don't want to go through that again. So I thought I'll just buy a local bike. Then I don't have so much risk of having having to evacuate a bike again. So that was the main reason. But I was still planning on taking that CB500X now again. That was my plan. But riding that 250 completely changed that I realized, no, that CB500X, and I did upgrades to it. So I changed to a bigger front wheel. I did a whole suspension upgrade, everything to make it more off-road capable. But after riding the 250, I was like, that CB500X will never truly be an off-road bike, of course. And it's so heavy. I came back and I was like, that bike is too heavy, it's too bulky. I want a much lighter bike. Oh, now I'm starting to give away more.
No, don't do that. but the question I have for you is that, so we're building your magical bike, right? And we're pulling an old Aprilia engine out of a little V twin 500. We're going to make it more reliable for you by snapping our fingers. My question for you is that as you're building this imaginary bike, would you want something that's a slightly bigger frame, like off of a CB500X, or would you want something that's more of your, smaller dirt bike seat, dirt bike frame setup?
Yeah, let's go for the smaller dirt bike frame.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. That's interesting to me only for you cover so much distance, and I try to think about riding my 350 long distance, and I'm just like, it's so uncomfortable and miserable. Compared to the bigger frames, but I'm also probably 6 inches, 7 inches taller than you.
You have a bigger frame than she does. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, but I think you might also, in your mind, you have tarmac probably, and not.
I think in my mind. No, I'm saying in my mind, I'm thinking about I've done some longer, mostly off-road trips, and I'm thinking 250 to 300 miles a day off-road primarily. And even then, it's not as comfortable for me as a 790 or an 890 or something like that. So
yeah. But the thing, I think we are thinking opposite, because you were thinking comfortable for riding, but I'm thinking of all the crashes. So my bike needs to be comfortable to pick it up again or to get it out of a dodgy situation, or to turn it around on a single trail or something like that. So because I'm on my own, so I always need to get myself and the bike out of any weird situation. So that's more important to me than thinking about when everything goes smooth sailing. So I'd rather be prepared for when it's not smooth sailing. Then I know that I can handle it. Yeah.
That's a great point.
So that's a great point in the fact that for our audience especially, you're taking all these trips that we're talking about. You're solo, correct? You're not going with other people. Yeah.
No. Yeah.
So it's a good consideration.
On that topic of being able to pick the bike up if it tips over, that kind of thing, what's your fuel capacity sweet spot in your magical bike? How many gallons or liters would you want in your fuel tank?
That's a good question. Yeah, so in my Africa trip, that 250 had 7.7 liters, which is just a little over 2 gallons or something, which is tiny and obviously was way too small.
Yeah.
And then I had to lug around these fuel bags, which were leaking, and it was just a bit of a disaster. So that never again. Even though you just make it work, right? I mean, I made it work. It's not a problem. Yeah. But I would say at least 12.5 liters, and 15 would be better. But 12.5 if you have an economical bike. If you can run 30 kilometers to the liter. Sorry, this doesn't mean anything to you.
No. So I was doing the math. So 12 to 15 liters is roughly about 3 to 3.9 gallons. Yeah. And what I think is amazing is that you're sitting here having done all these trips around the world, and you're like, if you could just give me 3 to maybe 4 gallons of gas per fill up, I'd be great. And I can't tell you how many people argue with me, and they're just like, if you don't have at least 7.5 gallons of gas on your motorcycle, you can't ride it. And I'm like, I'm okay. No. I can do so. I thank you so much for setting people straight. This is great.
There are only a few areas in the world where you need more, and for the rest of the world, you're gonna be absolutely fine. And the only thing you might need to do is just check ahead, where are there some petrol stations, So when I was in Africa with my tiny little tank, I couldn't just ride and just be I'll stop when I see a petrol station. So that comfort is gone then. You have to do a little bit of kind of knowing, okay, there's one there, there's one there.
Right.
But, not having to drag around all this fuel all the time is going to be so much nicer, and just light is right, So, yeah. But it's also experience, because when I was the first time in South America, I had a 15-liter tank, and I had 2 extra canisters, 5 liters each. So I was carrying 25 liters. So I've been there, and, with all this major fuel anxiety. And then I realized, actually, I never needed it, except I think one time somewhere in Patagonia. But for the rest, never needed it. So now I'm like, I'm not going to do that again. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's interesting.
excellent.
I had people. The pick that I had done for this episode was a Yamaha MT-10, which has notoriously bad fuel mileage, and people were like writing in, and they're like, "You can't tour on that motorcycle," and I'm like, "I've toured on my Triumph Bonneville, which only gets 135 miles to the tank." Zach, good drinking. We have a drinking game where our listeners, if we mention certain things, they have to take a drink. But it amazes me because people were talking about like, oh, in America you need to have this range, and I'm like, nowhere in America can you not find gas within 100 miles of like you said, you have to do a little bit more planning and make sure you're not just riding aimlessly, but like. You're talking about countries that are, probably much more open and less populated than what I have in America. And so many people have this anxiety that you have to have all this gas with you. Otherwise, you can't go have an adventure. So I'm glad that you're setting the record straight.
You're welcome.
So, moving on to the next topic. You mentioned that you had, your Monster had, aftermarket exhaust, and you took the like end plugs out, so it was even louder. One of the things we talked about were sort of myths in the motorcycling world, and the most prevalent one probably,
in America, in
America, yeah.
Loud pipes save lives.
Exactly, that is cited all the time as loud pipes. So is that something that you hear in Europe as well? And are there other things that you have found to be true or not true as you've gotten more experienced on a motorcycle?
Yeah, definitely loud pipes save. I can barely say it even. Save lives is definitely also one that is very popular here. I obviously, when I had that Ducati with that incredibly loud pipe, when people could hear me from like 5 kilometers away, I always said the same thing as well, but always kind of as a joke. It's not that I truly believe in it. It's just a great excuse if you have a very loud bike that you can say, right. Safety.
But you would say you like the way it sounds more than you think it's keeping you safe.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't really believe it's keeping you safe. I don't think so.
What about other things in the motorcycle sphere, in whether it's in the Netherlands or in any place that you've traveled that you've heard? Have you heard anyone say like, oh, you gotta, if you don't have a reflective thing on your forehead, then you're in real trouble, or like anything that you said, cultural things that people have told you that you have to obey that you found to be not really true?
Oh man, yeah. People tell me stuff all the time like that, like you must do this and you mustn't do that and you must. To the extent that I can't even name an example now.
That's fair.
Yeah, I think all these like urban myths, that's why they're called urban myths, I don't really see a lot of truth in them, to be honest,
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, Zach and I talked about it in response because there were a lot of people that were up in arms about the loud pipes save lives. And Zach and I both had a Akrapovic. Zach has a KTM and I had a 1090. We both had the Akrapovic exhaust as well, which is what you had on your Monster. And we like to explain to people that there's like a difference, right? Like you can have a nice throaty exhaust that sounds good versus like, just being obnoxious and pulling your motorcycle up to like, a center town square and just like revving the engine to be a pain in the butt and just, so there's definitely, there's scales of gray here as far as like, how obnoxious you want to be with it. So we all like the sound too.
Exactly. Right. And in my defense, the way if I would go and take my Ducati out for a ride, I would roll it out of the garage, I would start it and immediately drive away. I also don't believe in that whole myth of you need to keep your engine running for 5 minutes. I'm just like, nah, that's not that used to be back in the days. That's not necessary anymore. I have nothing to base this
Henning
on.
would probably disagree a little bit, but I'm with you.
No, I'm saying I have no scientific proof for this, but that's just how I feel. So I would just start it and immediately just easily drive off, not to like annoy everybody with this loud bike sitting there for 5 minutes. So yeah, and I wouldn't rev it like super loud most of the time. But
most of the time.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But I think that's key, right? You're like you got to respect. It's a level of respect for the people around you. So
yeah.
So I've been trying to like transition to the next topic and bring up the next question in a very natural way. I don't have a good way to do it.
Bring it on.
Actually, that's not true. Not entirely true. You mentioned earlier when we were talking about what bikes you'd recommend, or I think that's what we were talking about. You mentioned, Noraly, that you sometimes evolve with the type of riding. You get a certain bike and you grow and you decide you want something slightly different because of your skills or whatever the case may be. So we did one of the more recent episodes we did was on sport touring bikes in particular, which I know that like sport touring isn't necessarily in your wheelhouse, or not typically what you've done on motorcycles. But I'm curious if you have. I guess I'm curious about your reflections on your motorcycling life and where you think, if you were going to look into a crystal ball, I know that's not easy to do, but where you think you might grow into. Like, do you see certain types of bikes? Like, you were attracted to the Norden 901, but sort of were like, it's too big. But do you think someday you would move toward a different type of riding, or you would try other bikes, or do you see yourself old and gray, enjoying a different type of motorcycle than you do right now?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely just love trying out new bikes and just riding the same bike. I do really like to ride a bike for a long time, so you really get to know this bike. Right. But then just trying out different things, I think it's always good. I think for now, I will definitely stick with the adventure riding because I absolutely love it. Of course, now that I discovered rallying, it's a completely different ball game, and also bike related, because for rallying, you do need a different bike, I think, than for going on the long run. And of course, at the rally, I've been, eyeing these KTMs and these Husqvarnas. And I was like,
take a drink.
Yes. Yeah.
You got KTM working there. That's good.
I thought they're very pretty. But for the type of long distance riding, totally not. It's not suitable. When a bike comes with like oil changes and they name it in hours, it's just not going to work for me. I need it in like 10,000 kilometers or something, because I don't want to do a service every 2 weeks in a random weird country where I need to find a mechanic and all of that. It's just not so great. So, wait, I'm going completely off topic, I think.
No, that's the beauty of the podcast. Let it roll.
The podcast should be called Off Topic. Actually, I think that's what we should should call this podcast. But also, with regard to the bikes that you would potentially enjoy someday, maybe this is all very relevant because you answered the question. You're sticking with what you love right now. But
I think like definitely if I look like far into the future, which is something that I normally try not to do, but anyway, I would imagine like this garage in one place. Okay, I'll still have some bikes scattered around the world probably, but I would have a garage somewhere. And I would again have a Ducati Monster, not the newest ones because I don't find them, they're not monsters anymore, but like one of the older ones, like a 2010 model or something. Mm-hmm. And then I would have like a dirt bike, I would have a rally bike, I would have an adventure bike, and then probably maybe also like one like sports, but then that would also need to be Ducati, so then maybe a Panigale or something. Okay. I don't think I'll ever go to like the Harley type. That's
you can say it. Just say it. Yeah.
It's not really my scene. I don't think it will be my scene.
Fair
but
enough.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. So there's a lot of people that we have that write in and say, oh well, if you're gonna go do this ride, you have to have this kind of bike. What would you say to people that are going to ask you and say, hey, Noraly, like I want to go travel India or South America, and I only have a CB 500F in the garage. Can I do it with that, or do I need to have a specific bike to go have an adventure? What would you say?
Yeah. You already have the perfect bike. Like the bike that you have already in your garage, that is your bike. And I just don't listen to all the naysayers and everybody saying that you can't do something, because of course you can, You just need to be a little bit more creative, but you can make anything work. Also on a low budget, you don't need flashy things necessarily, It can make your life a bit easier, but you need it. Not always. So whatever bike that you have, just go with that and just don't listen to everybody saying you can't.
Don't listen to everybody saying that you can't.
Yeah.
There you go.
I love it.
That's a
I love
perfect.
it.
That's a perfect way to wrap up that segment of our podcast. So that was pretty much season 4. We went through all of our episodes with you, and we kind of brought you into the conversation throughout the entire season. So we basically just did an entire season of podcasting in one episode. But now what we want to do is we want to move on to, we have a section of the podcast where we read through some of our Highside, Lowside viewer and listeners' comments, and we picked a couple to tailor, to you that we want to get your take on. And Zach, you want to read the first one?
Surely. So the first question is from Noor, and I don't remember Noor's last name.
It was B. It was just Noor B.
Noor B. I wish. Well, yeah. If it was in front of me, I probably wouldn't be able to pronounce it.
Sounds Dutch to me.
Yes, exactly. That's why I was going to bring it up. So you recognized even the first name. So anyway, Noor says, in a previous episode, you were talking about the differences riding between Canada and the United States. And I'm wondering if you've ever been to Europe and what differences you've noticed riding in Europe versus riding in America. Noor says, I'm from the Netherlands and would be interested in doing a bigger road trip in the United States, but would be curious what differences we would expect. So I have never ridden in the Netherlands. I don't know about you, Spurge. Have you?
No, but I've ridden in the United States. So,
well, and Noraly, have you ridden in the United States before?
No.
Yeah.
But I've ridden in
right.
the Netherlands.
So we figured this would be a good way to peanut butter and jelly and make a sandwich out of this comment where it's like, maybe you can give us a little bit of an insight as to what riding in the Netherlands is like. And then we can kind of compare some of the notes with America and we can kind of answer Nora's question for them.
Okay. Well, riding in the Netherlands, I think the biggest difference is that in our country, you can ride from north to south or east to west in 3 hours or something like that. So we have a very, very tiny little country compared to the United States, of course. And 99% is tar.
Okay. So I can't ride across Pennsylvania in 3 hours, let alone the entire United States. Do you ride on the right side of the road?
Right side of the road.
Okay.
Yes.
So that would be the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not like those wacky Britons.
I think there's a big difference that filtering is allowed here, but it's not in all the states or nowhere. I don't know. Some states.
It's allowed in California,
right?
But not anywhere else.
But do they really check on? Like, do you get immediately get fined?
You will have. The problem is we have very aggressive drivers.
Asking for a friend.
No, we have very aggressive drivers. You will not get fined as much as like somebody will try to run you over.
Oh, really?
So one of the things that I've talked about previously is that like I really like riding in California because in California not only is it legal from a filtering standpoint, but like the drivers usually recognize it and they move out of the way for you so you can filter and then they move out of the way. Where I live in Philadelphia, if you try to do it, we have, drivers are much more angry here because it's cold and it's rainy in the wintertime and they don't like that.
They don't like their lives.
They don't like their lives, exactly. So they kind of like hold a grudge against motorcyclists. So what I would say is that like if you are coming to visit from the Netherlands, keep in mind that lane filtering is not legal unless you are in the beautiful sunshine state of California, in which case have at it and enjoy the weather.
That's
very good to know.
That's technically the Golden State. I think Florida is a sunshine state, and if you're there, you can't.
It's still a sunny damn state. Like, you know what? Like, you'll enjoy it.
It's true. Yes, and also I love what you brought up about the scale of it too, Noraly. That's a good point and not something that I would have thought of right off the bat. But if you're going to ride from one city in the United States to another city in the United States and you're looking at a map and you think like, oh, well, it's only a third of the way across the country. It might still be 3 days to get there depending on where it is. So,
here in 3 days you're out of Europe, kind of that type of thing. So.
Right. Yeah, the fastest I've ever made it across America on a motorcycle is 4 days. And that was not fun because it was like you were burning like 800, 900 miles a day to try and like do it. And it was miserable. So if you're going to try and ride from, the example is to Zach's point, like where I am in Philadelphia to New York City, it's like that's a 2.5 hour ride. If I want to go down to DC, that's a 2.5 hour ride. Boston's like 5 hours away. So like in the Northeast of America, we have a bunch of cities that are kind of close together that you could do a little trip around and see all these different cities. But if you're in Los Angeles with Zach and you want to go down to San Diego, well, that's like 3 hours. Vegas is like 4.5, 5 hours across the desert. And then like San Francisco is like 8 or 9 hours up the freeway or up, Highway 1.
6 hours.
So it depends on if you're being scenic with it. Like if you take Highway 1, and you want to actually enjoy the ride a little bit.
True.
So, yeah.
So hopefully, Noor, that helps. That helps your, your quest to have a road trip across the United States. And Noraly, I guess I'll put it to you. If you want to say something to him in Dutch right now, some advice that you don't want us to hear, you're welcome to do that.
I think
while
it's
I prepare the next question.
it's a she.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, excellent. I'm so glad you said that.
We're learning Dutch already. This is amazing.
Spurgeon said they earlier, and I thought, wow, that was really smart because we don't want to assume that it's a he or a she, and then I totally screwed it up. So anyway,
this is so great. So what?
There's more women in motorcycling than you think.
No, absolutely.
We appreciate every single one of them. We try to be as inclusive as possible. I think we get so used to getting messages from dudes on the internet that it's hard to remember that sometimes it's not that. So
what message do you want to say to Noor?
In Dutch.
Yeah.
Saying something. Anything you don't want us to know? You said you could tell her that we're idiots and you're sorry about this whole podcast.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll say something.
We won't know what you're saying.
I'll say something to her. Noor, als je aan het luisteren bent, ga gewoon naar Amerika, ga er lekker rijden en geniet van al het offroaden wat je daar kan doen.
I love that. I understood there was off-road in there. I heard off-road. That was
yeah.
Hopefully you didn't insult us too deeply. Anyway, Highside, Lowside comment number 2.
Before we do that, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. I want to take a little bit of a detour here. So you had brought up the fact that there's a lot of women in motorcycling, or more women in motorcycling than the average person might think. Do you find yourself getting a lot of questions or comments from other women specifically that look at you as a role model because of, they can identify with you a little bit more? Is that something that you get a lot more than we probably would?
I think it's coming more and more, or at least if I have to believe YouTube analytics of where my audience comes from and all of that. When I started out, it used to be like 99.6% male. And now it's just shifting. So I think now it's about almost 10% of my viewers are women.
That's awesome. That's so great.
According to Google. So that's pretty good. I think that's amazing. The motorcycle industry is male dominated, without a doubt. I think it's mostly men who like motorcycles, which is totally fine. But it's cool to see that there's more and more women also. Yeah.
Agreed.
I had worn a Over and Out T-shirt a couple episodes back, and it's a women's only off-road event, and RevZilla sponsors it, and we go and we help set up and we make all the trails, and it was their biggest year to date. In years past they had maybe 75 or 100 or 125, and this year they had over 200. I think it was over 200 or 250 women show up, and it's been great to watch this event grow and see all these different people from all these different walks of life, all these women, really come and learn and try to ride off-road, and it's something that is definitely growing here. So it's great to see that you're seeing it in Europe as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, so sorry about the detour. I did want to ask that. So let's get on to Highside, Lowside comment number 2. This comes in from Amateur L, and that's capital E-L for the last name. This is off of season 4, episode 7, The Big and Tall and Small. And Amateur says, I would like your thoughts on speed limiters that will be introduced to cars and eventually bikes in the not too distant future. Apparently, it will be fitted in new cars next year in Europe. Amateur is from the UK.
He or she.
Okay, he or she. Amateur. I don't think Amateur is a real name either way, so you're right. Amateur.
I don't think so either.
So Amateur lives in the UK and sees that apparently there's going to be something where cars can tell what the speed limit is on a given road, and the car won't be able to go faster than that. Have you heard about this at all?
I have not heard about this at all.
Excellent. Well, then this person is completely crazy and we can ignore the comment.
But based on your reaction, you seem horrified because I'm assuming you're a speed demon and you have a need for speed as well.
No.
Don't lie to us. Don't lie to us. Your reaction says otherwise.
No, well, actually, on the rally, I kind of discovered, this whole weird speed side of myself that I didn't even know was there. and I suffered from red mist and going all crazy.
Nice.
I didn't know I had it in me. So, but on the road, I try to obviously behave and just follow the rules if I know them. Sometimes, when you ride into, I don't know, Tajikistan or when you're just crossing countries, it's sometimes a little bit hard to know what rules apply exactly everywhere. But but I think the whole speed limit, it just takes away all your freedom, right? I mean, what's the fun there then? I don't know.
Oh, we agree 100%.
Yeah.
There is no fun there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Have you ever been pulled over, like where you've just been like, I'm sorry, officer, I didn't realize that the speed limit was different? Like, have you had any run-ins like that?
One time in Kyrgyzstan, and I was speeding there, not on purpose, but I don't know. Yeah, I missed a sign or something. But yeah, to my luck, they actually they're a little bit corrupt over there, and so I bribed him. I'm not sure if I should say this actually.
How much? How much does it cost
this is
to get
good
away
advice.
with it? Yeah.
Anybody's in Kyrgyzstan.
Okay. Oh no, I must give a little bit more context. It was not my intention to bribe him, but he offered himself. So he was just like, "Give me this money." So I said, "Okay." So I gave him that money, and then later when I spoke to the locals, it turned out that the money I gave him was like about 10% of what I would really have to pay if it would have gone like the official way. So I got away with that quite well.
So you got a foreigner discount of some kind.
Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, I'm being pulled over quite regularly, but usually it's not for speeding, but they just want to check out who you are and where you're from, where you're going. So that's mostly the case.
So here's a tip for folks from the Netherlands that are riding in America. Do not try to bribe the officers in America. Usually that will get you in more trouble. Also, the state of Virginia, they are notoriously bad for speeding. So if you are going just a few miles over the speed limit in the state of Virginia, they take it as a point of pride to find you and to pull you over. So other states you can kind of get away with it, but definitely don't try to bribe an officer. And if you're in Virginia, just stick to the speed limit. I'm speaking from experience. I think I have more speeding tickets from Virginia than any other state. So.
No, but I think also outside of the US, my rule is also never try and bribe anybody. I would never do that. But if they kind of make the move of pay me this now and you can go, then I think you're fine. Yeah.
Sure, you're just playing the game.
Exactly.
When in Rome.
Just go along with it. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I'm assuming you just gave him an autograph. That's all he wanted for a bribe. He was like, just sign this for me. We're good.
No, I had no clue who I was. Luckily. Yeah.
All right, final question / comment is from Kevin, which I'm pretty sure is a real name. Kevin wants to weigh in on motorcycle survival. Kevin says it's too easy for kids to get a learner permit in Pennsylvania specifically, but in the United States, and get on a bike that's too fast. A smaller motorcycle would keep inexperience in check enough to get around the next bend without hurting themselves. And Kevin points out that other countries have it right with different class levels for motorcycles. And this is something that people bring up a lot to us, Noraly. And I guess we just wanted to get your, your sort of perspective on the tiered license thing. So did you have to do that in the Netherlands? You had to get an A1 license and then, or A2 and then A1 or whatever it is?
Yeah, we have a similar system here, but it's only age related. So it's if you're under the age of 21, I believe, then you can only get the A1 license.
Okay.
And I think it's 35. What is that? KW
Kilowatts.
Kilowatts.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't really know the conversion to horsepower, but that's the limit of the type of bike that you can ride. So it's smaller bikes. And then above 21, you immediately go for your bigger license. So I was 28 when I went for my motorcycle license. So then immediately you can just ride whatever you want, as big as you want. But I do agree. So in my opinion, I would actually maybe say if you just start out with your license, doesn't matter what age, start with a smaller bike. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because why would you immediately grow on some beast of a machine? Okay, I did ride that Ducati Monster.
I was biting my tongue. I was like, your first bike was a Ducati Monster.
I know,
so,
but it was not a beginner bike. I mean, I struggled. That thing was just so difficult, and I was going like on these roundabouts with the thing going like, oh my God.
So if you could do it again, would you start with a smaller bike and then work up to something bigger?
This is a trick question.
I know. That's why I saved it for the last one.
Okay, let me phrase it like this. I think it's wise to start with a smaller bike, but no, I would not have wanted to miss that first experience with that Monster.
Okay,
Right,
that's fair.
So so maybe to put an even finer point on it, if you were Queen of the Netherlands and you could decide all of the laws, would you make it so that you have to start on a smaller bike, or would you say it's too much fun for people to decide?
Do the Netherlands still have a monarchy? Am I that far out of whack? Like, do they?
We do, yeah.
Really? I didn't know that.
We have a king and a queen.
That's amazing.
And it's not clear to me by the way that the Queen actually makes the laws.
They don't know.
I didn't think so, but I'm saying it more as like a theoretical.
No, I'm watching The Crown right now on Netflix on my wild Saturday night. So like I'm deep into this whole like monarchy European thing.
Gotcha.
No, then I would just if I could make that law, I would say, no, okay, just ride whatever you want, but just be careful.
Okay.
I like it.
So it would be the official saying of Queen Noraly of Holland that just everybody be careful. You can do whatever you want, but please be careful.
Be careful. Yeah.
I like it. Okay. Fair enough. Well, that's as good a way to end as I can think of.
Yeah.
Spurge?
I think I honestly
but can I ask you then, if you could make a law, like any law for motorcyclists, what would that be then?
I want lane splitting to be legal everywhere. Like, that's my law. Like, 100%, you know what? Let people figure out whether or not bikes are too big for them. I don't care about that. Like, I want to be able to lane split everywhere. It would bring, personally, I like it because selfishly, I'm already a motorcyclist, and like, I would be able to get through traffic so much faster on my daily commute here in Philadelphia. But more so than that, I think it would help to bring more people to motorcycling. I think if lane splitting was legal everywhere and you had all of these people living in cities and they were like, well, I can actually get to work in half the time if I buy a scooter or a motorcycle, then more people would gravitate towards it. So that's my King Spurgeon decree. I just made myself a king. We don't have it here in America, but like I want to bring it back. Yeah.
The theory stands. I feel like I've got so many little ones that are like don't seem important, but I don't know. No tolls. Motorcycles would not pay tolls on roads.
Good one.
No, just you go through. You don't.
Or national parks. I think that's the other one too.
I'm conflicted about national parks.
How about a discount? How about a discount? Because like I have to pay the same price as like a family of four in a Toyota Corolla. Like,
I know. That's ridiculous. Also, while we're at it, I'm taking two laws. No sound systems on motorcycles. No speakers. No.
Just loud pipes.
Sure. There you go.
If a motorcycle's going to make noise, have it be coming out the exhaust, for crying out loud. Yeah. We don't need to hear AC/DC or Queen or whoever at freaking 100.
You're really up on your modern music, Zachary? Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't want any of that Queen. That Bohemian Rhapsody is really distracting from my experience here.
I'm telling you what type of music I usually hear coming out of those motorcycles is what I'm telling you. So it speaks to the taste of the people riding those bikes, not my taste, believe me. Anyway, I appreciate you putting us that question to us, though, Nora. And you can see if you ask us a question, we really fly off the handle. We immediately have lots of opinions.
Yeah.
Okay.
But either way, this was great. Thank you so much. I know that it's much later in the evening where you are, so I appreciate you spending the time with us. I had so much fun having you on the show, and hopefully we'll get to bring you back later in the future, and we'll get to see maybe what this bike is, or what the next bike is, or what the next adventure is. So,
yeah, cool. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Really had a blast, and it's just I can talk motorcycles for hours on end. So.
As you just proved,
As you just proved, yeah. You're certainly a kindred spirit to us here at Highside, Lowside, and we so appreciate your time. And we can't wait to keep following your adventures on your channel. And I guess we just hope we talk to you soon.
Yes, thank you, and let's speak soon again.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Cheers.
Okay,
See ya.
see you.
So that was fantastic. I absolutely had a great time. I'm so glad that Noraly made the time to join us on the podcast today. And I feel like I have consumed a lot of her content, but now I feel like I know so much of it even better. So hopefully hopefully some of you out there, found somebody new to check out on YouTube other than just, Zach and I.
Because we know you're unbelievably loyal to us. But yeah, she was awesome. That was so much fun. Such a cool personality, such a interesting person, and such a great ambassador to have in the world of motorcycles, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you think about all the people that she's touched with her videos on YouTube, and the people that she's met in real life. I mean, she's just such a bright and energetic person, and I feel like a great person to have representing the two-wheeled world, as far as I'm concerned.
Could not be a better conclusion for season 4 of Highside, Lowside. With this episode, we are wrapping things up. However, Zach and I will be back in January with the start of season 5. Like I said, season 5 is going to kick things off with Lance Oliver, Zach and myself discussing all the best bikes of 2021. That's the year we're in now. I had to think about that for a second, as well as looking forward to 2022. In the meantime, you can always leave us a comment on YouTube. As always, shoot us an email to highsidelowside@RevZilla.com, and make sure to head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review.
Correct. Because if you do, you could be just like Sneehith or SNE hit H9 or
Southeast hit high niner. Catch a niner in there? You call him from a walkie-talkie?
We are grateful for your comment, and please, as a reminder, send an email to highsidelowside@RevZilla.com with your preferred t-shirt size and mailing address, and we'll send you some swag, just like we've done every episode this whole very season.
I don't think there's anything more to say, my friend.
I don't think we should say anymore. I don't know how long this podcast has been at this point, but I'm sorry. It's been quite a slog.
I'm not going to apologize. This was a great podcast, man. And honestly, I would apologize if it was just you and I talking for 2 hours.
That's true.
But Noraly, awesome. I can't wait to get her on again. We got to shut up now, though, because I agree with you. She's already said all there is to say. Until next time, thank you for joining Zach and I for another season of Highside, Lowside. Thank you for, making it available for us to do this. If it weren't for you listeners out there, there will be no season 5. So thanks to everyone that stuck with us through all of this.
Yes, indeed. Until then, ride safe. And we'll talk at you pretty soon, everybody.